Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits Encounters video. This is going to be an interesting one to share because not only does it deal with the world of Ouija boards, something that, again, I mentioned no when it comes to utilizing this anywhere within your vicinity, but apparently it's more of a positive story. Again, take this information with a grain of salt when it comes to having good experiences with Ouija boards. I stay away from them 100%. You will never have me touching any of those items or messing around with them or even being within their vicinity when someone else is using them. But let's see what you guys think with regards to this positive story. Once again, it comes from the reddit.com website. They're from the subreddit called Ghost Stories, a user by the name of It's Okay, It's Alright, and they titled theirs as Ouija Board Spirit Children. So let's go ahead and let's talk about this encounter here, and then I'll also hear what your thoughts are. Are there truly positive experiences that can happen from the use of these dangerous boards? So here's what the user states. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences and I've told others about them over the years, but I've never actually written them down before. I guess these posts are my way of recording them and even just for myself. Anyways, here's my story. It's long as blank, and so I'll apologize for that right now. I am high and ramble a lot, but I remember this so incredibly clearly. So when I was around 11 years old, I went to Lake Tahoe over the summer with my best friend, who I'll call Emma, and Emma's parents and younger brother were there as well. We stayed at a cabin for about a week or so. Emma and I got bored easily. This was the 80s, so there was no internet. I don't even think we had HBO. Her mom suggested we poke around in the cabin's closet for a board game, and that's where we found a Ouija board. Being 11-year-old girls, we opened that up quicker than you can say they're here. Now, as I mentioned in previous posts, but I feel I should mention again, is that my mom and my grandma have both used a Ouija board and tarot cards. So that, coupled with the many ghost experience I had growing up and still do, made my brain see an old dusty Ouija board and think, sweet, let's use it. And so Emma and I made contact with three spirits who were all children. The first was a girl who was around 10 years old, I believe, and without giving too much away, she had been a minor child star who had died in an accident. She gave us details that we learned only later on when we looked her up. I remember really liking her and thinking we would have been friends if she was still alive, and that weighed so heavily on me. The survivor's guilt when I hadn't even been in the accident myself. But I remember feeling it, yet the vibe for her was so loving and pure, like a regular child, but also a literal angel. I'll call her Jane. Emma and I then contacted two other kids. I don't remember their names, but the boy was older, maybe around 12 or 13, and had died in the 1970s or early 80s from what we could guess. I'll explain more about this later. There was also a young girl, I think about 8, who was from the 1870s. I remember thinking she was like Little House on the Prairie. The boy was sort of looking after the girl, I think because he was older, and I never figured out how they got paired up, but Jane wasn't paired up with them too. They all three interacted with each other comfortably though, and that sounds so weird, I know. Anyways, I had a camera, the old-fashioned kind that took film you'd have to develop, and so we told them to sit on the couch. We assumed they had, and then I snapped a photo. Now, what I'm about to say is something that I hope to prove soon. I took a photo, and in it you can clearly see two of them. The boy dressed in a t-shirt with a beach type of logo design and shorts that were definitely from around 1980, give or take a year or two. The girl sitting next to him was wearing a long-sleeved dress that hit at her ankles and then a bonnet. She was leaning into him like a big brother, and he always seemed like he took his job of being her protector very seriously. We never connected with either of them apart, but we did connect with them and not Jane, and vice versa, meaning these two were never apart. I don't think I realized that up until now. And so I showed the photo to my mom, and she took it for safekeeping. I never found it. My hope is that I somehow saved the negatives of the film so that I could have them printed again. If I find it, I will share it here, but I've honestly looked off and on throughout the years and haven't found it yet, so I don't know. I know this is a huge claim, so ignore it if you're skeptical. I would be, lol. I'd want to see proof if someone said they had proof and would find it funny they couldn't locate the proof. Now, I get it. That's why I'm saying I understand if you doubt I took this photo. I hope to prove it to you, though, because this photo was so clear. Not like actual people, they're definitely spirits, but the amount of detail that was visible was astounding, if I remember correctly. I want nothing more than to find this photo again. You have no idea. Anyways, our trip ended and we said goodbye to them. We were both really sad. We'd become friends with them as much as you can when you're 11, armed with a Ouija board and a dream. A year or so later, another friend of mine got a Ouija board. I was a terrible influence. I can see that now. I called for Jane and we connected with her. I tried to check up on her every so often over the years. My heart broke for her, and it still does. It was different with Jane than with the other two spirits. They all resonated love, and I felt a strong sense of protection from them. We used the Ouija board all the time during that trip, and I remember them telling us that bad spirits were trying to get through, but they were blocking them out. The bad spirits were attached to the cabin, but couldn't make direct contact unless you helped them. The Ouija board was the bait. Apparently, a lot of people took the bait before us and had terrible experiences because of it. But since Emma and I had called out only for very specific good spirits, we got the three first, and then they blocked out all the bad ones. I remember the bad ones almost got through and there was some sort of struggle. My God, I never realized what truly happened until just now. Writing that out just blew my mind. There was a struggle. I remember them telling us this. Emma and I were scared. Some weird activity happened but quickly stopped. The bad ones were blocked out, but we got the feeling they couldn't hold them back forever. But it was like they were holding that door shut with all of their strength just to spend time with us. I got the feeling they hadn't interacted with other kids in a long time and they were also genuinely good. Again, like literal angels. Jane's spirit was the strongest. She had a brighter white light, like literal starlight around her. I later learned she was quite the philanthropist and little activist. I still feel she would have made a lot of change had she still been alive. I'll never understand why she was taken from this world with a light that bright. It's so hard to explain. The other two, they were lights too, but seemed like ghosts to me. Jane's whole presence was stronger somehow. Her energy and love was so strong it was palpable. I sometimes wondered if the world just wasn't ready for her yet. Hers was a light that would change the world. We weren't involved enough for someone like her, at least not yet, anyways. That's my story, more like a novel, so I apologize for the length of this post. If anything, I got to share this story and also make some realizations about this experience. So I think I have a lot to process here. Thanks for reading. Then that's it. That's everything that the user It's Okay, It's Alright mentioned in their story. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. For starters, as you can see, this is truly, at least according to the user, a positive experience associated with the Ouija board, mainly just out of sheer luck. They happened to get 3 ghosts, and those spirits were essentially children that were good children. Like, in other words, they had those positive lights, as the user kept mentioning multiple times. If they, by any chance they would have had a really bad one from the get-go, and then who knows what might have happened. The user alluded to that, stating that the cabin apparently had that Ouija board there, and apparently others who were there before staying at the cabin used it, but then had bad ones come through, that there were always bad ones around that area, and they were using again the Ouija board as the bait to be able to be summoned and then go in. That's why I've mentioned in the past, and I'll mention here again, I will never, ever, ever use a Ouija board. And I've seen some people make comments asking me, why don't I use it? Why don't I go on a live stream with one? Hell no, absolutely not. That is, to me, one of the most dangerous things you can do, because so many things I read about it say once that door opens, you can't shut it afterward. And I do not want to have that happen to me. But at least when it comes to this user, apparently, again, they had this good experience. And those ghosts, those spirits of the little children were in turn making sure that those bad spirits were not going through. As they nicely stated, it was almost like they were holding back the door, but just barely, to make sure that those spirits were not going to be able to come in and then make trouble for the user and a friend and so on. So again, you're playing with fire, you're playing with the bull's horn whenever you do that stuff. So heavy advice, again, to not do anything along those lines. I'm surprised it's still sold at places, at kids stores, at kids aisles, because that is a very dangerous device. And again, you'll never have me be able to touch it. But anyways, just wanted to share an opposing story. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.